Welcome back to part 2 of cutting alphabet letters. Today we're going to start with lowercase, and I have this beautiful example that's given to us by Lois Ehlert, who illustrated the marvelous Chicka Chicka Boom Boom, where you can see uppercase and lowercase beautifully demonstrated. So let's try cutting lowercase letters together. Note that in a lowercase a, it sits squarely on the baseline, but you'll often see an A like this, which is a printed A, and they diverge sometime in history. But if you want to make a baseline A turn into a print A, you can just add this little J on the top. So know that going forward. I've made this little PDF for you to see all the lowercase letters, and you'll notice what's different is that you have letters that swing down below the baseline and some that extend up. These are called descenders when they go below the baseline and ascenders as they go above. So you have ascenders on the top and descenders on the bottom. That's the difference. Most of the letters fit on the baseline, but this time I'm going to make a card, and I want it to fit an envelope, and unlike the last time I made this, I'm going to make the paper background fit into the envelope before I even start. So I'm making it slightly smaller than the envelope, just using a piece of construction paper, starting it vertically, it fits in, and now we're good to go. So let's get started. I thought I'd make a thank you word to go on this card, and I made this PDF so you can see different shapes and tips on how to do it. Once again, we're going to start with the rectangles, and I've made a bunch of rectangles in different sizes. And this time I'm going to lay out thank, T-H-A-N-K, and you, Y-O-U. I'd like you to think about taking some of those strips that you make your rectangles from and adding some kind of pattern. Just use a marker, make sure it has a high contrast level with the color of paper you're using. And if you run out of ideas, here are some suggestions for how to simply get started on making some of those. I'm going to replace the O and the Y with something that I've decorated this time. So let's start cutting. First, I'm going to make a T. And I'm going to use an uppercase T for this one. And next the H. And just like we did on the capital letters, I'm going to use the side of the rectangle as the side of the H. And I'm going to make a classic A. And I think I'll use that patterned paper for the A and not the Y. So it looks so nice that I don't think I'll cut out anything on the interior. I'll just leave it just like that. Now an N, once again, I'll use the side of the rectangle, but I'm changing the sizes of all the letters. So this N has to have a very short nib so it doesn't look like an H. Now a K in lowercase just has 3 triangles missing from 3 sides. But it looks like when I cut this one, it's not going to look very lowercase. It's going to look kind of uppercase, but I'll clip it to fit that corner. Thank you. Now, with the Y, I'm going to take a capital letter and try it in that space because I don't have room for a descender. Now, to cut an O, please notice again how I'm turning the paper, and I've speeded it up here a little bit. This time I'm going to cut into it, spin the paper, and cut out the center of that O. And lastly, U. I'm going to cut that grounding staff and cut out the U so it fits right there in the corner. There. Let's jazz it up with a little bit of lime green. So by putting rectangles behind it, I'm going to extend that T so it goes all the way down. These are the letters that I find the most challenging, so let's go over those quickly. Here's the E, the most challenging when it's in the lowercase form. And the first thing I'm going to do is cut the oval that is the outside shape of the E. And then I'm going to come in and give a slice right where I want the upper and the lower to be separated. I'm going to cut out a U like a little bowl, and then I have to clip off what I call the smile, that little opening in the bowl. and that gives us the separation between the upper and the lower E. Now I've made it so tiny in the top that I could just cut a little sliver for the I of the E and glue it on top. But let's say I do want to cut out a little snippet of space there. You can see how tiny I had to cut it in order for it to work. Now, let's suppose I try this again, but this time I'm going to cut the E in a different configuration. So I'm going to cut the oval, and this time I'm going to make it a little bit more round. And I'm going to leave much more space at the top before I go and cut the bowl, which will be much more shallow this time. Now, I have to, of course, cut the little smile. And you can see how much more room I have at the top. So I'm going to have enough room to cut out a nice substantial opening there. And there are the two E's. They both have different personalities, and you can see all three work. Now, let's take a look at the S. Now, there is no difference from the capital S to the small lowercase s. I'm going to cut out those U's from the rectangle, but I can make it just smaller this time. Now, I've cut completely straight U's, no angling, and that gives me a nice upright S, which I then just continue to trim until I have it the size that I want it. Now, let's suppose that I want to have a little different S. I'm going to angle the U. See how it's angled? And you go one from each side for the upper and the lower opening of the S. I could leave it just like that, but now I want to take my scissors and round it off so that I have a more of a soft rounded S. Now I can continue to shape it. But you can see that an S is just like an uppercase S, and they all look beautiful. I love them. Now here's the M, which is double humped and also has two U's. Look how I'm turning the paper to make that nice narrow turn at the top of the M's cut out. So I have two. Now I could just leave it straight at the top, but I'm going to go ahead and put in the humps, and I'm also going to leave a little notch for that grounding stem. So there's an M. So I learned something by making these videos. I always cut my letters out of a strip that was the same width. But I started experimenting because of you, and I cut a shape that recedes like this. Let's see what happens.